confronting painful questions about medical negligence and the state of his healthcare system following the death of a young son of award-winning author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, a case that has ignited a national debate over hospital standards, emergency response, and accountability in public and private health facilities, from overcrowded wards and under-resourced emergency units to the absence of enforceable patient safety protocols. Critics now say the tragedy reflects deeper structural failures in a system many Nigerians increasingly fear cannot guarantee basic care when it matters most. The family seeks answers, and authorities are facing growing pressure to investigate. Lawyers are now saying, well, maybe we need a structural re-engineering of our laws. The case has become a defining moment in the wider conversation about trust, professionalism, and reform in Nigeria's health care. My guest is a rare Nigerian. Hardly would you find a medical doctor at the very top of their career and at the same time being a lawyer attaining the very top of the legal academic height. My guest is a doctor of law and a doctor of medicine, an associate professor of orthopedic surgery and a senior lecturer in law, orthopedic surgeon, lawyer, health policy expert. He has 3 PhDs, PhD in surgical pathology, PhD in clinical oncology, and PhD in law. He's a director and chief consultant surgeon, consultant surgeon at the State House Medical Center. Dr. D.K. Obalum is live for us here. Thanks so much, Dr. Obalum, for joining us.
Thank you, Sheil.
Let me also tell our lecturers that you taught me health law. So, so people will know your secrets that I've in passing mentioned it on this program. But I wouldn't see anything good for our viewers, and I wouldn't like. And it took a lot of convincing. You're a very shy person. You don't want to talk. You don't want to come to public. But I begged you that you should come and enlighten us. And you've sat in disciplinary cases, and you know, you've taught, you've been in court over some of this matter. What we saw in the case of Chimamanda Adichie's son, because that is a case study that is bringing this conversation, it looks to me, if I remember some of the things that you taught us, like a criminal medical negligence case. And it brings to mind the Bolambolito case, isn't it?
Yes. Thank you, Sheil, for that incisive question. The basic fact is that, looking at the facts of the case that we've read from the media, it looks like criminal medical negligence. Remember that in law, facts can be true, facts can be false. If the facts, as we gather them right now, are true, then pointing towards criminal medical negligence. Criminal because the young child, Nkanu Nnamdi Esege, died. Negligence because the facts suggest that the doctors in question failed to do that is expected them based on their qualification and their specialization. That is why it is negligence, because they failed in their duty of care. However, one must state that whether you're talking about medical errors, you're talking about medical negligence, medical malpractice, criminal errors, criminal negligence, criminal practice, there are some available defenses for the medical practitioner. If you remember your health law very well, you know that the legal framework for as a guide for medical practitioners practicing medicine in Nigeria still remains the Medical and Dental Practitioners Act. And flowing from that act, the Section 1 sub C of that act empowers the Medical and Dental Council to make a subsidiary legislation, which is the Code of Medical Ethics in Nigeria for medical practitioners. And Section 28, 29, and 30 of that code defines medical negligence, proceeds to say what are medical negligence, and prescribe the punishment, especially in Section 30, code. The criminal errors, criminal negligence, and criminal practice are captured in the criminal code, Sections 303, 305, and Section 343, that prescribe the elements of that crime and prescribe consequential punishments for that crime. what happened in this child's case is that first, the child was correctly referred from Atlantis Hospital to Eurocare Hospital. That was the correct thing to do because
for a brain
MRI for a lumbar puncture, and from the facts that emanating, the child was also to have a cardiac catheterization.
Due to the procedures that led, that was prescribed.
Yes. The child was transported by ambulance under oxygen to Eurocare from Atlantis. He got to Atlantis, and because he's a child, he may not be calm inside the tunnel for MRI. They had to sedate the child.
With propofol.
With propofol.
Propofol, very popular Michael Jackson case.
Yes. Propofol is I'm a surgeon, so propofol is what you use in the theater regularly. Propofol is a fast-acting anesthetic agent, which can also be used for sedation. However, propofol has a dual mechanism of action. It enhances the GABA blocking effect on nerves in the brain, and at the same time inhibits the excitatory nerves in the brain. So somebody will say, in a child, why propofol?
21-month-old child.
21-month-old toddler, why propofol?
So propofol is a wrong line of medication for that age?
Not necessarily so, but the use of propofol in children should be done with exceeding care. That's one. Secondly, while using propofol, especially in a sick child, there should be oxygen support. A child should have oxygen.
Which we don't know whether or not they administer.
The fact is that the child was on oxygen from the referral hospital Atlantis to Eurocare. That was confirmed. The fact in the media is that when he got to Eurocare, after giving the propofol, they took him off oxygen. And the anesthetist was carrying him on his shoulder or in front of his chest, whichever. If those facts are true, that could suggest medical negligence. But having said that, I do not know the status of the equipment of the Eurocare hospital, because not having the appropriate equipment to do what you have to do can be actually a defense in law.
Eurocare is one of the most equipped private hospitals in Nigeria, and I know a lot of people who have talked about it. But a brain MRI will suggest that a patient will have to be subdued in some way. You have to lay down and you have to go through the tunnel. Am I right?
You're correct.
So in that sense, are you able to administer oxygenate that child in that process?
An interesting question. But remember that oxygen usually is administered to a patient through a face mask,
okay,
through a tube,
okay,
connected to an oxygen cylinder.
So it's possible that you do that?
It is technically possible. Whether it is practically possible in that center is what I cannot attest to. But technically, yes, you can do so, particularly a child that came to your hospital on oxygen. It is imperative to maintain such a child on oxygen. Let's look at a broader perspective. The child came for brain MRI, a lumbar puncture.
A lumbar puncture, please explain, what does that mean to our viewers so that they can understand?
Okay.
Lumbar puncture, what does it mean?
A lumbar puncture is a procedure in which you obtain the cerebrospinal fluid from the lower end of the spinal cord to culture it or to analyze it and see whether there's inflammation or infection.
So it's like a test?
Yes, it's a test. You put a needle into the spinal cord at the lower end of the spinal cord to obtain the cerebrospinal fluid, the fluid that backs the spinal cord and the brain, to see whether there's an infection affecting the cord and the brain, or whether there's inflammation or any other problem.
Which is, in any case, what the doctors are trying to find out, because what looks like something that graduated from like a flu for the child, they now discover that this is graduating rapidly. And in that sense, they gave the child a propofol to sedate the child. Maybe the propofol and that procedure and that set of medication is right or wrong is a basic question, because the child doesn't look like being able to come back naturally from the propofol sedation, isn't it?
Yes. Propofol is a fast-acting, short-duration sedative or anesthetic agent. But the key factor here is that the propofol may have inhibited the respiration of this child both centrally and peripherally, and therefore that child needs to have been on oxygen. Remember, why are they looking for brain MRI? The infection affecting the upper airway, or whatever is happening in the upper airway, because of the close connection of the upper airways to the brain, to the base of the brain, it's easy for infection to escape from the nostrils or the upper respiratory system into the brain. And that was why the Johns Hopkins Hospital requested for the brain MRI and the lumbar puncture to see whether there's any infection affecting the brain, the spinal cord, or their surrounding membranes. So because of that, one should expect that there will be a challenge to the respiratory system.
Let's break it down for our viewers to understand. And I thank you so much for the technical analysis of what the legal framework and the medical environment that may have surrounded Chimamanda Adichie's son's case. It then means that Chimamanda Adichie, sadly, when she walked into that hospital with our daughter, our son, the trust is in the hands of that hospital and the doctors. And that is where people are now asking the question, the legal jurisprudence around healthcare in Nigeria, between the doctor, the hospital, and the patient. And you look at other jurisdictions like the US, the UK, South Africa, and you discover that the doctors seem to be isolated. The hospital, where is the hospital in the scheme of things? The big question surrounding our health law and the bodies of law, where are the gaps and what are the problems?
Thank you. The absolute thing here is that if something actually went wrong, based on standard protocols, the doctors that attended to the patient are liable. The hospital itself are vicariously liable. I heard in the media that the medical director told Chimamanda that he got too much propofol. That was the medical director. The medical director is not the same person as the anesthetist that gave that. The anesthetist that gave that will need to say exactly how much he gave to the child. Where are the gaps? The gaps are mainly in the system. Nigerian doctors are among the best trained doctors in the world. I've had exposure to almost 3 continents of the world, and I know that Nigerian doctors are very, very well trained doctors. But, a big but, many private universities are beginning to water down the quality of training of our young medical doctors. And that is where I expect my friend, Professor Fatima Kyari, who is the Registrar and CEO of the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, to start stepping up and to block some of the weaknesses that we are observing in the private universities, where in some of them it's a cash and carry thing. So the system, 1, that's a gap. 2, our legal framework needs to be more robust. 3, the enforcement mechanism needs to be tighter. Apart from the Medical and Dental Council, I think we need to bring up the Dr. Samuel Manoa days, where we had inspectors of hospitals across the country that can go and inspect what equipment you have and what are your procedures. 4, we need judicial activism. The judges in our courts need to start looking at these cases and making pronouncements and judgments that will make everybody sit up. For example, I know 2 or 3 years ago, a doctor was sent to jail for 6 months for amputating the wrong limb in Lagos. I know the doctor, I know the hospital, and I know about the case.
You heard about the case in Kano too?
Yes.
Where when a scissors was forgotten in the belly and the patient died.
clear medical negligence, criminal medical negligence. So our judges need to be what we call judicial activism, to be proactive to making these decisions quickly. Fifthly, the government needs to come in. I'm happy the Lagos State government is already investigating the death of...
But I argued whether they have jurisdiction. In the procedure of discipline and on this procedure, you know that the Medical and Dental Council Act says how the petition, especially when it's a criminal medical negligence, how a patient can go and where he or she can go. Does the Lagos State government have a say in this matter in the first case? A
direct answer: all private hospitals are registered and licensed by the state governments of Nigeria. All private hospitals. But Section 15 and Section 16 of the Medical and Dental Practitioners Act prescribes especially the roles of Medical and Dental Practitioner Disciplinary Tribunal and the role of the Medical and Dental Practitioner Investigation Panel clearly. And therefore, there are 3 levels of relief that Chimamanda and her family can actually seek. One is the disciplinary process through the Medical and Dental Council, where the doctor can be reprimanded, suspended for 6 months, or maybe deregistered. 2, they can choose to go to court.
So those are okay. So that's in the process of disciplinary process.
Yes.
But the criminal part of it.
I'll come to that.
All right.
Secondly, they can go to court and seek civil remedies. Civil remedies, like we know the popular Bolam and Polito cases.
Polito cases, yeah.
Civil remedies that they can get compensation from court. That is civil process. And the third relief is that they can write a petition to the law enforcement agents who can investigate, and if it is confirmed that there's criminal negligence, they will prosecute the person, which can land in imprisonment. But let me say something, a new development that ACJA has brought now. Mm-hmm. Ordinarily, when you go for criminal prosecution, the party that suffered injury will not get any relief. But ACJA has said now that through criminal prosecutions, that you can actually also give award reliefs or compensation to the injured party. But if you remember Bolam test, mm-hmm. Bolam test is like a peer review legal mechanism mm-hmm. that was decided in 1954 based on facts of the 1957, based on facts of the 1954 malpractice. Mm-hmm. And then the Polito case that was done in 1997, which was refining the Bolam principles, yeah. Trying to give court the audacity to challenge the peer review mechanism, making sure that it is reasonable, it is logical, and it is admissible in court, in as much as doctors can review their peers and submit their opinions as expert opinions. Mm-hmm. Looking at that, one will expect the injured party to seek all the 3 remedies mm-hmm. because nothing stops you from seeking 3 of them simultaneously. But it is prudent to explore the criminal aspect first, so that findings of a criminal court, where the standard of proof is much higher than in civil matters, may quash whatever you have done in civil matter on the disciplinary.
When that is upheld, you can use the elements of the judgment to pursue the civil matter.
Absolutely. Because if you go the other way around, the Denloye versus Medical and Dental Practitioner Tribunal case may absolve the medical practitioner at a higher level. Yes.
It's interesting, and I must thank you for this, but what final word would you give to the patient? Because there are those who will say it's the decadence and the lack of trust in our public health institution that is making people run to the private sector. In the choice of where to go, what do you say to the patient?
My first choice, which remains where I take my children, is the public hospital.
That people don't trust.
There may be delay, there may be crowd, but the protocols are easier to adhere to in a public hospital where you have a hierarchy of doctors where so many eyes are watching, than in a private hospital, which may be cozy and air-conditioned, which may give you VIP treatment, but there may be challenges in establishing and delineating clear protocols. to maintain a good standard of practice. My first choice is a public hospital.
Of standard?
Of good standard.
But there are not many.
There may not be many, but I think the government is working hard to reform the system and make the public hospitals more acceptable.
It's not every day that you find a vampire of academics like yourself on television, Dr. D.K. Obalom. I call you a vampire of academics because you've tried to snatch expertise and distinction in everything that you touch in medicine and in law. And now I understand that you are grabbing another PhD, making the fourth, isn't it?
Oh, well, in life, the biggest room in life is actually the life for improvement, getting better. So I'm seeking to get a PhD in management to be an icing on the cake.
Making 4.
Yes, sir.
Professor D.K. Obalom taught me health law, my law lecturer. Thank you so much indeed for creating time and for accepting to come and explain these issues, both on the medical side, which you have expertise in, and the legal side, which you have highest eye academically in. Thank you so much indeed for coming tonight.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
Thank you so much indeed.